The life of a hunter is a solitary one, but also full of profound wisdom and deep connection with nature. It's a profession that demands focus and patience, making it an ideal choice for someone who wants to lead a more peaceful life, away from the distractions of city life. If you've ever been fascinated by the lives of these lone wolves, who navigate their way through the wilderness, then this story is for you. So sit back, relax, and let the tale unfold. Once upon a time in a quiet countryside, far from the noise of the cities, lived a father and his young son. Their house was nestled in a clearing surrounded by tall, dark trees. The air was clean and sweet, the rivers clear and brimming with fish, and the mornings were filled with the beautiful song of birds. Their life was simple yet beautiful. The father was a skilled hunter. He knew every nook and cranny of the forest around their home. Every day, he would wake up early, donning his well-worn leather jacket and grab his trusty spear and bow. He would then take his son with him, teaching him the ways of the hunt. As they roamed through the woods, the father shared his profound knowledge with his eager young companion. "In this world, son," he would say gently, "we live by respect for the land, for the animals, and for ourselves. We take only what we need, and we do not waste anything." The boy listened closely to his father's words, learning the art of tracking animals, setting traps, fishing in the cold streams, and reading signs in nature that most people would never notice. He watched his father's every move, emulating his stance. The way he held his spear and the whisper quiet steps that betrayed no sign of his passing. His father was not just teaching him how to survive in the wild, but also instilling in him a deep sense of responsibility, respect, and balance with the natural world. For the boy, these lessons were not just about hunting, they were about life. As the years rolled on, the son grew stronger and more adept in hunting. He learned to read the tracks in the mud, to follow the winding trails left by rabbits, and to predict the movement of skittish deer. His hands, once small and soft, became firm and strong from gripping his bow and arrow. His eyes became sharp and keen, trained to spot the slightest movement in the underbrush. And his heart grew brave, learning to silence his fear when faced with a charging boar or a surprise wolf. Every night by the warm crackle of the fire, the father would share stories of his adventures in the woods, tales of danger, courage, and the meaning of honor. He spoke of times when he had to outsmart a cunning fox to secure food for his family, of how he had protected his village from a marauding bear, and of the bravery shown by a young hunter who had saved the life of a fellow villager. These stories were not just entertainment for the boy. They were a way to understand his father better, to see the world through his eyes, and to learn the values that guided his every move. Listening to his father's tales, the boy's admiration and respect for his father grew with each passing day. The father knew that one day he would grow old and frail, and that the responsibility of protecting their family and their village would fall on his son's shoulders. He wanted his son to be ready, not just as a hunter, but as a leader, a protector, and a role model for others. "One day, you will be stronger than me," the father would say, gazing at the dancing flames. "And you must use your strength not to harm, but to protect." The boy listened intently, taking his father's words to heart. He knew that his father was preparing him not just for the future, but for life itself. But the boy could not have imagined what lay ahead. Little did he know that his destiny was intertwined with the fate of their village, and that his true test was still to come. The boy grew, and so did his skill as a hunter. The forest became his second home, and its creatures his companions. He learned to communicate with them, to understand their language, and to respect their place in the ecosystem. He understood that he was just a visitor in their world, that he should tread lightly, to maintain the balance of nature. Then came the day that changed everything. The sky was the color of pewter, and the ground crunched underfoot, signaling the coming winter. The father and son had ventured deeper into the woods than they had ever done before. They had heard rumors of a magnificent stag with antlers like a king's crown that roamed these parts. They weren't hunting for food, but for sport, for the thrill of the chase. The air was heavy with the smell of pine and damp earth. The only sounds were the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant call of a crow. Suddenly, a loud roar shook the woods. The sound reverberated through the trees, sending a shiver down the boy's spine. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a massive shape emerge from behind a thicket of trees. It was a bear, its fur the color of dried blood, its eyes blazing with anger. It towered over them, its claws scraping against the stones, its hot breath steaming in the cold air. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Without hesitation, the father stepped forward, raising his spear in a stance of defiance. "Run!" he shouted to his son, his voice echoing with urgency. But the boy froze, rooted to the spot by fear and surprise. The bear lunged. The father reacted instinctively, thrusting his spear toward the beast. There was a grunt of pain and a spray of blood. The fight was on. The father fought with all his might, his movements quick and precise, his spear a blur of motion. But the bear was strong and relentless, its claws raking down the man's armor, its teeth snapping just inches from his face. The boy stood there watching, helpless, his fear slowly turning to determination. He couldn't just stand by and watch his father die. Mustering all his courage, he grabbed his spear and charged toward the bear, mimicking his father's moves. But despite the boy's valiant efforts, the bear was too strong. With a final, earth-shattering roar, the bear swiped its paw, knocking the spear out of the boy's hands and sending him sprawling to the ground. The father, wounded and exhausted, tried one last time to strike. But the bear was ready for him, catching his spear in its teeth and snapping it like a twig. The forest fell silent. The bear stood over the fallen hunter, its chest heaving, its eyes glinting with triumph. The boy, trembling with fear and sadness, crawled to his father's side. The man who had taught him everything, the man he admired and respected more than anyone else in the world, was lying motionless on the ground. Tears fell on the snow. That day, the sun set early, casting long shadows over the forest floor. The boy stayed with his father's body throughout the night. whispering stories and sharing memories until the first rays of dawn touched the horizon. The next morning, he returned to the village not as a carefree boy, but as a young man carrying the weight of loss and the legacy of his father on his shoulders. From that day on, the boy changed. He trained harder, honing his skills until they were razor sharp. He hunted alone, his face grim and determined. He studied every sound in the forest, learning to move like a shadow, striking swiftly and silently. The pain of losing his father fueled his training, driving him to become stronger, more disciplined, and more skilled. He remembered his father's words, "You must use your strength not to harm, but to protect." And he vowed to honor his father's memory by becoming the best hunter he could be. Years rolled by, and the young man became a protector, a legend. They say no beast ever dared come near his land again, and those who did never returned. It wasn't because he hunted for revenge, but because he now carried the spirit of his father in every step he took. He understood that the forest, like life, was full of challenges, some that you could prepare for, and some that would catch you off guard. But he was ready for whatever came his way. The quiet, focused hunter was a testament to his father's legacy, a living embodiment of the values and skills his father had instilled in him. And that, in itself, was the greatest tribute he could have ever paid.